How Chamath Palihapitiya became a SPAC billionaire. Chamath Palihapitiya is a man who knows how to get what he wants. If nothing else, he is famous for being one of the most confident talkers in the world. He has absolutely no problem with telling you exactly who he is and how he feels about something, often in an extremely blunt way.
The best thing that ever happened to me was I applied for a bunch of different jobs and I got a job at a company called Winamp.
He's been compared to Elon Musk inasmuch as he is sharply honest and uses his social media accounts to further his aspirations. It is this business style that has led to him becoming a billionaire in the world of special purpose acquisition companies, or SPACs.
Most people at most companies are really shit. And that was manifested in large degree at AOL. I learned all the things not to do, and that was probably 90% of my learnings.
Achieving all this wasn't easy, but Chamath Palihapitiya has had the talent, skill, and determination to see it through. The beginning. Chamath was born on the 3rd of September in 1976 in Sri Lanka, but by the time young Chamath was 6 years old, the civil war in Sri Lanka saw his father Gamaj be posted to the High Commission of Sri Lanka in Canada, which took them to the wintry north. His mother worked as a housekeeper and would go on to become a nurse's aide, but his father, unfortunately, found it difficult to find and retain stable work, being regularly unemployed.
We are involved in probably 10 to 15 billion dollar unicorn companies.
Chamath has recalled spending cold nights on a mattress in a tiny living room. Eventually, the family would return to Sri Lanka, and Chamath's father applied for a refugee visa. When Chamath was 14, his family were living on welfare, which forced him to have to go and get a job at a Burger King restaurant in order to support the family.
I would be so ashamed that I worked at Burger King.
He would take the money he had earned from his burger job and present it to his parents so that they could buy the things they needed to live. At the same time though, he attended Lisgar Collegiate Institute and graduated when he was 17. By 1999, he had graduated from the University of Waterloo, obtaining a degree in electrical engineering, but he knew he needed to approach in a different way to make some real money. Getting into big tech. After finishing his college run, Palihapitiya would decide that it would be the best way to make money to move into investment banking, finding that it was attractive to him as someone who enjoyed taking risks and gambling. He decided to work as a derivatives trader at the investment bank BMO Nesbitt Burns. However, he found it unsatisfactory after doing what he perceived to be some very good work, yet being overlooked when it came time for annual bonuses. He accepted a job for Winamp, the alternative Windows media player, and moved to California, which of course is the home of Silicon Valley, the center for most big tech in the world. Seeking his fortune during the dot-com bubble and seeking emancipation from the shackles of simple employment, he joined AOL in 2014, becoming their youngest vice president ever and heading up their instant messaging division. As AOL's Assistant Messenger was, at the time, many people's preferred messaging service when there were only 2 or 3 in existence, Chamath had become highly involved in something that has affected all our lives. But it was not the first time he would do that. Facebook. In 2015, Chamath decided to leave AOL and joined Mayfield Fund, which he stayed at only briefly before leaving again, and this time joining Facebook. At first he wasn't impressed, as he felt he was above being interviewed when he had already seen a lot of success. However, he was able to impress Mark Zuckerberg, as it was Palihapitiya who first convinced Zuck on the need for Facebook, which was then just getting its feet on college campuses, to have a division dedicated to just growth. Over his 6 years at Facebook, the company of course began to grow tremendously. In fact, at the time when Chamath left, Facebook had hit over 1 billion users. Stephen Levy wrote in his book, Facebook, The Inside Story, that Palihapitiya was considered by many to be a bully, and that he had been responsible for making many of his subordinates cry. Palihapitiya was, even then, a single-minded and focused individual who would tell people just what he thought of them. Not everyone can handle that kind of treatment, especially in California, and that explains his bad reputation. Chamath left Facebook that year, But before he did that, he had begun making investments on the side to back small businesses in exchange for equity. That would take him right to where he wanted to be. Business angel. Palihapitiya was making angel investments to smaller companies in return for a share of their equity because he knew that this would earn him passive income for years to come. However, he had also found that he was unsatisfied with the fact that he felt he was building someone else's company. He has said before that he was unable to relax because of a question that he would ask himself: am I building what I want, or am I building the thing that someone else wants? He found that he had contributed to something that was providing people with a narcissistic, dopamine-generating feedback loop on social media, with people more concerned with their likes and comments than actually going outside and doing something. He didn't want to destroy how society works any longer, but the responses to his various public outbursts about the subject led many to think he was having a meltdown. As he had left Facebook in 2011, he started his own fund, the Social Capital Partnership, with his then wife, feeling that he wanted to invest in people he felt were interesting and good, and that he wanted to promote those people who would try to do something good with the money. He went a long way towards automating investment, but found that those traditional investments were still making the most money, likely due to the human factor. He invested in business chat service provider Slack and also Amazon at the time when people thought the latter had peaked. He was right, and Amazon began releasing more and more technology and opening more and more locations worldwide, which saw them rise to peaks never before seen. He also saw the merit in cryptocurrency early on and got into it back then. Also, he recommended a little company called Tesla, and Social Capital would go on to have great success, but it wouldn't go on forever. SPAC. With Chamath being a highly outspoken and opinionated person, it was inevitable that his executives would clash with him. Several did and left, and there were complaints that Chamath was spending too much time away in Italy with his new girlfriend and rarely ever showed up to the office or took calls from his employees. As the result of the mass exodus of top management members as well as co-founders, Palihapitiya was left managing a small firm with mostly just his own money. However, he saw it as an opportunity to spend more time on his side project, a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. A SPAC is in essence a shell company that will start by going public and using public investment, then having a time limit of 2 years to find an acquisition, during which time the SPAC is traded on the public market. The investor gives the sponsor the money, and the sponsor then uses it to buy something while giving equity to the investor. At first it was tricky, as the IPO, or initial public offering, had earned a bad reputation in the 80s thanks to a lot of sponsors taking the money and running. It was broker David Nussbaum who had pioneered the IPO's reconfiguration into SPACs. Traditionally, a company that goes public in an IPO is unable to say too much about their future projects, leaving them vulnerable to legal action if they can't match their predictions. The benefit for the company on entering into a SPAC is that they are able to market their forward projections without fear. Taking Virgin Galactic public. In 2019, Palihapitiya helped take Virgin Galactic public through a SPAC, which started a massive frenzy of SPAC popularity, with Chamath at the center of it all. With the idea of offering the average person an opportunity to own a bit of space.
Nobody cares about what's happening to the Uyghurs, okay? You bring it up because you really care, and I think that's nice that you care. The rest of us don't care. I'm just telling you a very hard...
Wait, you're saying you personally don't care?
I'm telling you a very hard, ugly truth, okay? Of all the things that I care about, yes, it is below my line.
Chamath knew that he would be able to make Galactic look very attractive to the public. Another element of Chamath's mass appeal came because he started publishing his deal memos on Twitter for everyone to see regarding his SPACs. By making it simple for people to get involved and understand what was happening, Palihapitiya ensured that there would be a long line of interested investors for his endeavors, and indeed, he succeeded, with the public appreciating his no-nonsense, transparent style and paying sometimes more than was even the target to be a part of his next project. In 2020, there were over $30 billion in SPAC investments, with almost $110 billion in 2021. SPACs go boom. The SPAC boom was inevitable, as once someone does something and sees success, other people are sure to mimic it. Now basically anyone with the money can have their own SPAC, like retired athletes, retired politicians, or combinations of people from all over. As for Palihapitiya, he began naming his SPACs alphabetically, starting with IPO-A, then IPO-B, etc. He has raised 6 so far, reaching IPO-F, and plans to complete the entire alphabet. In 2020, social capital Sofia took online real estate marketplace Opendoor public with the SPAC. Opendoor was able to release $1 billion via the merger, with over $400 million of that from the SPAC. SPACs go south. In 2021, Palihapitiya announced his intention to take Clover Health public with IPOC, and his plans to help SoFi, a financial services company, also. With this particular blend of confidence and expertise, people in the public have come to rely on him to tell it to them straight and help, rather than hide behind confusing terminology and rhetoric. The other thing that made the Clover deal so attractive was the fact that while they were a smaller company that was almost exclusively selling Medicare packages to other people in New Jersey, they were also developing an app called Clover Assistant that would allow doctors to provide a better level of care. This was an app that would apparently allow patients to contact their doctors and keep track of their medical history. It sounds great, but that would surely mean that Clover Health would have to be a technology company, and it simply isn't. Worse still, upon research done by Hindenburg Research, allegations were made that Palihapitiya had misled investors, luring them into a broken business. The report detailed that Palihapitiya had not informed his potential backers of an ongoing Department of Justice investigation that was being conducted into Clover's alleged deceptive business practices. In fact, Palihapitiya made more than $290 million based on a $25,000 investment. More recently, Chamath sold his stake in Virgin Galactic for $213 million and stepped down as the chairman of the company. What's next? Palihapitiya has made it a very long way from sleeping in a tiny living room in freezing Canada, with a large number of the public aware of who he is, what he can do, and completely split on whether or not to trust him. He has achieved success on a level unprecedented in the SPAC world. But are SPACs really here to stay? He certainly seems to think so, regarding the SPAC concept as being able to democratize investment. With the events that occurred in 2021 with the GameStop short squeeze and the pumping of AMC theaters, not to mention the overall bad will between Wall Street and average Joe Ape retail investors on Reddit, there's still a lot of reason to pay attention to the advice of Chamath Palihapitiya, especially as he shares in the very popular contemporary sentiment that the world's largest corporations and governments are not acting in the best interests of the general people. While his reputation was a little tarnished through the Clover Health debacle, he still has the perceived aura of someone who rarely misses when it comes to investment, and so he will continue to enjoy the support of the average person, especially as the class divide between elite and common continues to widen. He has been able to raise SPACs to a high level of prominence and make a lot of people a lot of money, including building himself an estimated net worth of $1.2 billion, which is more than enough to take care of any family that he wants to. What he does from here is anyone's guess, but it's a very good idea to pay attention to almost every word that comes out of Chamath's mouth.
Which, is the technical equivalent of whack-a-mole. Like, there's nobody here, if you're in an election cycle, you'd be...
With his habit of explaining things simply, challenging the establishment, and speaking on behalf of regular people, not to mention his ability to cut straight to the point, it wouldn't be long before he is the king of the SPACs once again.